Take me back to the day when things were simple. Riding bikes to the sunset, feeling that warm tingle. No screens to distract us, just the sound of laughter. Making forts in the backyard, chasing after what came after. Oh, the good old days when we play outside. No Wi-Fi, no worries, just a wild ride. Trading baseball cards, listen to the radio. Life was an adventure, don't you know?
All right. Welcome to Offline Daze. You remember that quote, Coley?
Oh, do I remember that quote? It's one of my favorite quotes. And the only person I think of when I hear that is Matthew McConaughey. And I'm feeling a little dazed and confused myself, but I think we got it. I think I'll come out.
Is that because weed is legal here in Colorado? You're feeling a little dazed and confused, or
Yeah, well, I mean, it is what it is, right?
Well, one of my favorite quotes from that movie, and there are a ton of them that you could throw in there, is I came here to drink beer and kick ass, and looks like we're out of beer. But that's just a classic one. It reminds me of just the keg parties that you would have in the woods, in your high school days, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And this podcast is gonna kick ass. The only sad thing is we are out of beer, and that makes me sad.
That is a little bit sad, but we are nonetheless happy that you've joined us for this podcast, Offline Daze, which is essentially just a throwback to the pre-internet times, because to be honest with you, we think times before the internet was fucking better than it is today. It's just, we've kind of come into a time where life is just a lot more robotic, less connection. So the idea of this podcast is really just to so we can kind of bring some of the past into the future, reminisce about the old days, and kind of build a community around that, right? Because I feel like we're really lacking in just community these days based off of being siloed by technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make community right now because with the technology of Zoom and all the things that we can do, or FaceTime, where you don't, I mean, yes, you're talking with somebody, but you're not really connecting like we used to connect. I mean, I think that was the biggest thing in the 80s that I loved, in the 80s and 90s that I loved, is just going out in the backyard with like 5-6 friends and just making sure you didn't die.
Yeah. And it was, you were riding bikes, you were, chasing snakes or turtles, building forts. It was like the rite of passage as a kid that I don't think kids are really experiencing these days, because they're just in front of a screen the whole time.
Yeah, it's like the virtual reality. It's not reality anymore. It's that's what it is, and you don't get that, and it sucks. I loved making forts out of sticks, and I loved making bridges so we could cross, creeks and little rivers and stuff like that. I thought that was like the highlight of my youth.
Yeah, simple things, very simple. But essentially, in this first episode of the podcast, we thought it would be a good idea just to interview each other a little bit, so the audience, the two followers that we have, can get a better understanding of who we are and what the podcast is about. So to kick us off, young Coley, tell us about yourself, sir.
Oh, throwing me under the bus that way, huh? All right, I guess out of a 50-50 shot,
gate.
it was one of us going first, right?
You're good at math.
I could do easy math, yeah, totally. Not this new math that they do, 80s math. I do 80s math.
I like it.
Oh man. I'm a stand-up comedian, struggling, but love to do it, love to tell the jokes. I am a dad, so I get to tell bad dad jokes on stage and off. It's fantastic. Yeah, I have an 8-year-old daughter who writes about 90% of my jokes, and so it makes my job way easier.
Is that legal? With the child protection laws there?
You know what? I'm her dad, and I'm giving her a place to sleep, and I'm giving her food to eat. I think we can do some child labor laws. So, that's why you have kids, so that they can do your labor.
Agreed. Agreed. Kind of
Yeah,
like a old school back in the day, a farm, you have like 20 kids and like 17 of them will die, but you still have three to just kind of do the grunt work.
yeah, exactly, exactly. You only need three. To me, three was too many. I have one, so and that
I
was
have
a
a
perfect
dog,
amount.
if that says anything to you. So,
Well, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about you, but yeah, since you're talking about your dog, let's hear about you, Ryan.
well, I come from the great state of North Carolina, so that's where you might hear a little bit of this southern drawl here. Um, Grew up in Greensboro. Lived there for between Greensboro, Raleigh, Wilmington for many years. So I wasn't a stand up, or I'm not a stand up, but I did do hip hop music. So I was a hip hop artist back in the day. So dropped about two or three albums. So looking to maybe make the transition into some
Hold on,
stand
hold
up
on, hold on.
comedy.
We're gonna have to hear some of those albums on this podcast for sure. At
Are
least
you
the
going to ask me to
preceding ones.
freestyle? Are you going? I will not freestyle.
100%.
You got to pay me $100 a minute if I'm going to freestyle.
No, I get it. But that's
But
awesome.
yeah, but that was part of my interest alongside of just sports. As any kind of young kid growing up, like basketball. I played a lot of basketball in the neighborhood that we had. Kind of had the central spot where all the older kids would come and try to get us to smoke weed, and then hoop with us a little bit and dunk on us and talk shit to us. you know so most of the time in North Carolina, like I said, but I've been in Denver on and off the past 4 or 5 years, and I just love it here. I don't know if it's just the legal weed or the great beer or the beautiful women or the endless sunshine or the great golf courses, or I could just go on for days here about Denver.
That's true.
But
Yeah.
but now we're here, so that's a little bit about me. Kind of kicking it back to you. What are your visions of what could happen with this podcast?
Oh, well, we have all kinds of visions with this thing, and I think that this has probably been the best part about planning this thing is that there's so many directions that this can go in, and it's fun to think about. Like we can talk about different topics, we can talk about different people. Um, it's gonna be one of those podcasts where people are gonna reminisce. It's gonna be a community building, making sure that we're bringing in everybody's ideas, and I guarantee you there's gonna be multiple people with all kinds of fun ideas that they all remember, and they're all going to be different perspectives, and it's going to be so great to just watch people reminisce and build this community. I think I don't even know how to explain it right now. I'm so excited.
I mean, yeah, I'm also excited, and like you said, it's just endless as far as topics to talk about. Getting people's ideas, interviewing people, because like we've talked about in the past, a lot of podcasts really just focus on interviewing people about their lives over and over again, their achievements. But this is a little bit different because it's just getting people's perspective on what life was like then versus now. Do they love it? Do they hate it? Do they, what are their thoughts? So I just think that there's just such an opportunity here to reach out, and I think people will be happy to talk about it because, again, like I've mentioned, in the past 25 years, technology has just exploded so much it's swallowed us whole. So we need some reprieve. We need to be able to like recover some of this stuff. I mean, we're like living in this post-apocalyptic world almost now. I mean, not quite that, but it feels like it's not too far off.
Well, if you don't go outside, right? Like that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I think the greatest thing about this podcast is that it doesn't matter. You can be our generation and love this podcast. You can be our parents' generation. You can be the generation that's below us, and you can be the generation that my daughter is. And everyone, even though they never, whether they experienced or they didn't experience, is gonna have some sort of thought about what, what was going on. Like, did we really stay out until the lights, came on? Yeah, that was like a thing, you know.
Yeah.
Were there milk cartons with people's pictures on them because they went missing? Yeah, that was a thing. So,
Yeah.
it's just, and then you look at the older generation and some of our backers, they asked me straight up. They said, "Hey, we want to know your perspective on the 80s and 90s because we were your age when that was going on and we were trying to be adults."
Yeah, and the funny part about being outside and like doing stuff is like it was probably more dangerous, for us as kids to be like playing outside in the 80s and 90s than it is now. I mean, think
Yeah.
about it, like people getting abducted, all kinds of, serial killers in the 70s and 80s, no technology really to connect like law enforcement there. So, I would say we were renegades for going outside and playing in those dangerous times.
100%. There was no such thing. John Mulaney talks about it. He goes, how much easier it was to commit a crime back in the day. And he's like, "Sir, we think we found a pool of the killer's blood." And the officer goes, "Gross, clean it up."
Right? Right. I always fantasize, and this is kind of fucked up, but I always fantasize about like being a cop in the 70s, like or 60s, like, and just like you don't have any resources, so the chances of you actually solving a crime are like zero.
Yeah.
So your job is to solve a crime it's almost like being a weatherman today. It's like the you have like a 2% chance of doing it. So I mean, and still get to keep your job.
You imagine you'd be like, "That guy stole my car," and you're like, "Bummer."
Yeah. Be like, well, you better go find him. I gotta go. I think
I
there's a
got
donut shop down the street. I'm fucking hungry.
I got a friend who's a car dealership salesman. If you want to go see him.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just things like that. The differences of all that. It seems like people are more scared to let their kids play now than outside than 20, 30 years ago. But we'll be talking about all that type of stuff. Um, just things like mall arcades, like, I mean, answering machines, beepers. Can you imagine if a kid today who just learned how to drive or 19 or 20 didn't have a navigation and you gave them a fold up map from their glove compartment?
Yeah, the fold-up map. Oh man, and they say we are more distracted now with our phones as opposed to the fold-up map where you have it just across your windshield.
Yeah, yeah. You're sitting there like, yeah, this road here, I think we need to hit that road. And it's like, I can barely even see that road. I mean, traveling cross country. I think my grandparents they used to go to AAA to get directions printed out. If
Yeah.
that's,
So here is a thought that I have always has boggled my mind. So back in the 80s and 90s, it was always pizza was 30 minutes or less, right?
yep.
How did they get there in 30 minutes or less? That's insane. They had nothing. They had no GPS. They,
Yeah.
I imagine this giant like string board in a pizza place of like different routes that you can take to get to certain houses of
Yeah.
like like this is the place that normally orders like 6 or 7 pizzas and this is the place that orders like one, and you're just like
That's insane. That's insane. Maybe they had a DeLorean, some of them to be able to get there quicker. I don't know.
yeah.
But I mean, and you got ridiculous shit happen these days, like people taking selfies, falling off cliffs. Like that's probably one of my favorites there, or people like getting too close to like, oh my God, there's a bear over there. Maybe I should try to get a selfie with this fucking bear. Like it.
Oh god. Eh, I got a
Uh,
story for a later episode.
Yeah, but it's just crazy. Like it's like people have lost their sense. It's like technology is just like
Yeah.
removed, like Men in Black their fucking brains, and then they're just like kind of doing all this stuff just because they need it now. It's like I got DoorDash, I got this, I need it now. If I don't get it now, then I'm gonna throw a tantrum. Like get the fuck out of here.
Remember when we thought that the reason that people were dumb was the lack of information?
Oh yeah. I, I mean, the things that people thought, they used to think like autistic people were like witches, you know? Like, I mean, it's, we've come a long way, but I'd still say we have a long way to go. But on some sadder news, you know, and we'll talk about things like this as it goes on, but it seems though MTV is no more, if you can believe that.
Yeah, super sad. Tear to the eye. It was 41 years old, had all its life to live left. Prime
Did
of
you,
life.
did you have any favorite videos that you liked?
My favorite video that I really loved was it was, oh god, I can't even think about what the name of the song was. Well, I think I mean it wasn't quite 90s or 80s. It was, but I really liked the Green Day albums, and I liked any Green Day music video. I was a really big fan of them.
Yeah, yeah, Green Day's good. I for some reason whenever I think music videos, I think that song "I'm Too Sexy for My Car," and that fucking guy. I'm a little model, if you know what I mean, and
Right.
I do my little turn on the catwalk.
The one that really sticks out to me is the walk like an Egyptian, and it was
Oh
like
yeah.
it was just with your hands.
I mean, there was some
Oh man.
good music back then. Like
Oh yeah,
artists, I
music
feel
was
like
great.
artists weren't manufactured. They kind of like came up organically, which
Totally.
to me that's all the difference in the world. Like when you're sitting there fabricating America's Got Talent, your next artist, these aren't artists that are having to like come up the natural way. They're just like getting plucked from these different places.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just it seems like it's getting sadder and sadder. But the idea of this podcast is to bring in some guest speakers and get their perspective, and not necessarily interview the guest speakers, but like get their perspective on what they remember about the 80s and the 90s, and then really getting our fans want to tell us what they loved about the 80s and 90s. I mean, we had someone reach out on Facebook that said that um, their favorite thing to do was to play out in the woods, but then they'd get poison ivy. And so it's like,
Mm.
but those are the stories, those are real stories that we want, because that was a thing. We had no idea. You can't Google poison ivy in the 80s. You just heard leaves of three. So it was like, okay, I don't really know which is the three.
Yeah. And I got a separate message. A kid messaged me that one of his favorite memories from the '80s was he got kidnapped. Just
Did he
just
end up on
kidding.
I was gonna say, did he end up on a milk box?
Oh man, I just got to throw in some dark humor, but also a
Totally.
weird thing that you're hearing these days is people are having less sex these days. But I'll tell you what's interesting: the 72-year-old lady that lives above me is not having less sex these days.
Tell my grandma I say hi.
Oh my God, it is nothing like going through a little dry spell, but just hearing that above you, it's something else. But it's cheap rent, so whatever I have to deal with from time to time, it is what it is. But yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm stoked about where we can go with this, the community we can build with this. Um, and like we said, it's like it's almost like one day you want to have like a chapter in each state, like an Offline Daze chapter. It's like where people can get together, talk about the good old days, and just really feel good about having that community and reminiscing, and like we talk about trying to bring some of that from the past into the future, because I feel like a lot of kids would appreciate it too. Like, it's like they've just been bum rushed with all this stuff. They don't know any better. It's not like they
Right.
chose to, hey, when I come out of the womb, can I just have a screen to just look at,
Right.
for forever? Like, no, they don't know about it. So I feel like it's our responsibility a little bit to just kind of educate them on it and be like, hey, here's this fucking slap bracelet. Anytime you talk back to me, I'm going to slap the shit out of you with it, in a nice way.
I gotta be honest, that was probably one of the funnest things I've ever done as a kid. It's just slapping other people with slap bracelets.
Right, right. Or what about the games we used to play? Did you ever play those games with the pencils where you would like flick the pencil and try to break the other person's pencil?
I did. I remember doing that. I don't know if you ever played this game. This game sounds very dangerous now as an adult, but we would take our pocket knives and we'd throw them into the ground, and that's where you had to stretch to. And so your leg was
Uh huh.
stretching, and then eventually you're trying to stretch, but you're literally throwing your knife at basically someone's foot and ankle.
Oh wow,
Yeah. Well, you know,
that's
that's
it's a little
that's what we do.
edgy, but it works,
It worked.
but I'm sure everyone has their own versions of kind of stuff that they used to did. I mean, I remember growing up, they used to paddle kids in school, right? Like if you were acting out of line. So just there's a lot of differences to talk about it, and I kind of feel like that's why we're here, and we're excited to be here. So anything else that you need to say here, Coley, before we call it a day?
I mean, just do the opposite of what we're talking about and follow us on social media, uh, and
Yeah.
we have Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok. Just follow us, and that's where you'll know where we'll be able to drop our podcast, and you'll be able to hear our podcast on all the sites that you can hear podcasts on. So uh, we can't wait to drop it, and it's gonna be fun.
It is going to be fun. So I echo that sentiment. We're gonna give you the good, the bad, and everything in between. This may not be the most politically correct thing you've ever heard, but we're going to be real. And I hope you like my American sunglasses here because we
Totally.
do live
I was
in
gonna
a
say, were
great.
the '80s politically correct anyway? I mean, when you look back at it, so you know what? That's not our fault.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're not going to be racist here, but we're gonna broach topics about mental health and various other things that some people may get their panties in a bunch, but it is what it is. We're here to talk about the good old times, and we're excited to see where this goes. So hope
Yep.
everyone has a great day, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.